Hello, everybody. My name is Darren Green, Director of Marketing Communications for Destaco, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. Today, we'll be talking about automation and how to utilize it to your advantage. This is a pre-recorded session, but we do have experts available on the chat. So at any time during this presentation, please feel free to text in a question, and our experts will be happy to answer them as we go along. I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have Jason Dove, East Coast Sales Manager for Destaco, Luke Kiesel, West Coast Sales Manager for Destaco, and Gary Michaels, the Central Sales Manager for Destaco. So guys, the idea of automation has been around forever. Even back in the 1700s with the cotton gin and the flour mill, the idea of finding new ways to speed up production and speed up processes and activities has always been around. Looking at the different ways that you can come about doing automation, they include mechanical, electrical, electronics, hydraulics, pneumatics, computer software. There's tons of different ways of doing automation. In fact, I looked at a study the other day that said industrial automation is a $214 billion market today, with projections to be about $326 billion by 2027. That's a huge amount of growth for this kind of market. So what I'd like to know is kind of what is driving companies into implementing more and more automation?
I guess I'll start with that. So a lot of times you've got a lot of these companies that are, they're not automated, and so they know that in order to kind of keep up with their competitors, both abroad and locally, they're having to automate. And so with a lot of the times whenever I'm walking in and I'm talking with customers, one of the first things that they ask me, is where do I start? And so one of the first things that I say is, start simple. Probably the two easiest places that I would recommend starting are going to be on repetitive processes and on non-ergonomic processes. And what I mean by that, so in regards to repetitive processes, these are processes that are done over and over again, with almost no thought. You're picking and placing, you're moving from here to there, you're taking a part or a product off a conveyor, placing it into finishing packaging. These are the easiest operations to automate because, again, you're moving point A to point B, and they're very repetitive. The next thing is going to be like non-ergonomic. So these are processes that probably aren't the simplest places to start, but they're probably the best place to start, because what you're doing, you will look for operations that are repetitive, but also put strain on a human worker. So maybe it's lifting a heavy object overhead in an application that's going to cause fatigue and possibly put the human worker at risk of injury. So there's a lot of advantages when it comes to automation if you've never automated a process. So some of those are you have much higher throughput, less downtime, with human operators and less human error. Your labor costs also go down, and it lowers your overall compensation costs. So overall, when you're doing something a lot faster without a human labor, that human labor can be diverted to more complex tasks.
Another reason why companies might also be automating certain processes is as consumers, generation want things much quicker. I call it the Amazon effect. With the click of a button, you could have something shipped to your house that same day. That requires some type of form of automation to get that done. Another reason is safety. As we all experienced this past in 2020. Pandemics could put a big toll on automation and other companies. When workers were let's say were sick or we had to rely on them and we couldn't for other reasons. Companies have to figure out ways to find automation to work for their favor. It eliminates some of the external environments that might be affected their performance. So people calling in sick or just safety in general is something that is going to be in the forefront of companies, that by automating something, it eliminates some of the safety portion of it, or maybe just someone of getting hurt. A robot will work and an indexer will run, not relying on anything else. So that's part of also a reason why companies want to automate.
And to follow up with Luke and what he was saying about the Amazon effect, especially over this last year, like Luke said, about with the environment that we've been in, automation is so key for repeatability, reliability, and quality. I mean, you look at what it takes to get product to us. So that automation has to be reliable 24/7, 365. The quality of it moving the products has to be spot on. You have to understand that the automation for moving product, if it is not in a quality fashion, then you start getting rejects, and those companies start losing revenue because of the bad quality. Same thing with repeatability. Repeatability is key. You have to be able to grab or move product from A to B, repeatable. And then, touching on automation and the future of automation, the workforce has dynamically changed in the last 20, 30 years with the skilled labor trades being split between mechanical, pneumatics, and controls. Well, in today's younger workforce, they paired it all together into what's called Mechatronics. So now we have one person tending the automation compared to what it was 3 in the past.
So when we think of automation, I mean, the first thing everybody thinks about is robots. I mean, that can't be the only thing that's used in automation. What other things are used in automation?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into automation. Here at Destaco, we offer a variety of products that will assist in automating a process. One of them, which is an index drive. An indexer will rotate something in a circular form, from station to station very accurately. Another form is conveying systems in a linear form. You're moving something very precisely with the movement, and you're stopping very accurately. Repeatability is, like Gary mentioned, is key. So there's other ways than just using a robot to move something. Our indexers and conveying systems are typically the heart and soul of a given machine. And then you've got other components around there that help it, progress things down the line or make it function all at once. So there's other than just robots, from grippers to, like I said, indexing devices. There's other forms of automation.
So like the robots, like we mentioned, robots have evolved. We now have cobots and all these different types of robots. How have the technological advances of indexers and conveyors, what have we done with those?
Yes, I think one that comes to mind, in the indexing world, a traditional indexer is something of a mechanical device, and over the years, it's been proven to last and work. It's very simple in general speaking. From your traditional DC motors, to AC motors, and now to servos, it progressed over the years. The new terminology that we hear in the marketplace is flexible automation. And what flexible automation means is we're using a traditional indexing device, but we're using a servo motor to move it into position. So the guts of the indexer pretty much stay the same. The only difference is that we have a constant lead cam that the servo itself drives and rotates the indexing dial plate into position, like so with a conveyor system, and moves something very accurately into position. So it eliminates the mechanical dwell portion where it requires it to stop. The servo actually controls the position itself. So that's one big change in the industry. It's very useful of a technology, especially when you're automating multiple items that a certain company can produce. In the past, traditionally, a company would automate something that has a high volume of something. if you're doing something by the thousands or 100,000s, you want to automate. Repetitive motion for an individual to do all day is not the safest. So that people would think of automation. Flexible automation actually attracts to the low volume products as well. And what I mean by that, today you could have that same indexer be a 4-stop, but within a few program and clicks of a button, you can make it a 6-stop. And as you can imagine, you could have 2 or 3 different product lines on that same indexing device being assembled, or some type of automation process could happen. So flexible automation has gone a long way.
Okay. What about grippers? I mean, you talked about indexers. What about grippers in automation?
I'll take that. So a lot of times within grippers, robots are pretty much really simple. I mean, robots are doing something. So, most of the time they're performing a task or they're moving something from here to there. We can also, with the Destaco, we have slides and rotaries and thrusters. So we can also use those with grippers basically to do the same thing, to tend to highly repetitive operations that tend to be kind of a shorter, high-speed motions. Like robots tend to, you can go fast with a robot, but typically it's on a larger stroke. With a thruster, with slides and thrusters, you can do something really, really fast. In fact, there's several operations that I've seen that they're going actually so fast that you barely can even see the thing stop. They're moving so fast. So we can size a gripper to pick up the same part over and over again, or we can size a gripper to pick up a variety of parts. Typically, we try to measure the largest and the smallest part. And then we'll try to pick a gripper that will be able to pick up the variety of parts between the largest and the smallest. And also in almost every robot application or slide rotary system, the slide rotary system is going to be much faster than a human, and you're going to have less errors. And that's one of the biggest things with this. And so, once you want to remove that monotonous work, and again, that's putting the strain on the human workers. And again, a lot of times you can either do that with robots or again with a small XY gantry like what we were talking about.
So thanks, guys. I'd like to remind everybody that we do have the chat available if you'd like to ask any questions and you have a certain question. Please go ahead and enter it into the chat, and our experts will ask it or answer it for you. So guys, moving on to our next question I have is, are there certain markets or types of applications that are growing faster in automation than others?
Let me take that, Darren. So honestly, in my opinion, no. I think pretty much every market out there, every industry, every type of application is growing so fast because everybody is realizing that, they're having to use automation in order to be competitive. Contrary to the common belief, the U.S. manufacturing as a whole, we are really years behind countries that we deem, third world nations. Almost all of these other markets, they're so far advanced from us, and we as the U.S. And North American market, and in general, we're having to automate in order to compete on a global scale.
So, if every market or every type of application is viable for automation, do you guys have some examples of some ones that you guys have seen, some maybe unusual ones or interesting ones?
Sure, I'll take that one. I think 3 that stand out for me with Destaco is especially the first one, which was a manual process of moving pork shoulders. The company actually was doing it by hand. And kind of going back to Jason's first question about having us come in there, look at the application, look at the processes, and automate it, we were able to go in there and give them a solution for automating the pork shoulder. A couple other examples that are kind of outside of the box is moving bread that's actually just got done being packaged in its film casing, which you would think is not that tough of a deal, but it actually is because of the thickness of that casing holding that bread. It's almost super delicate, so you have to be able to cradle it either with grippers or vacuum and not perforate that film. The third one, which application that I think was the most unusual, was picking and placing from a distribution center of your standard propane tanks. You don't think of, when you think of propane tanks, you don't think of it being moved around with a end of arm tool off of a gantry, but they actually do it in distribution, and we were able to go in there and provide them solutions for it.
Yeah, some other also industries that I think are growing in automation is the food industry in particular. As Gary mentioned with one of the examples there, I ran into an application where we actually designed a unique all stainless steel indexing device using, I believe it was a servo motor that rotated or spun soup as they were mixing. So they were mixing the soup in this machine. And this indexing device was, right at the center of the entire tank. So that was a pretty unique application where obviously you cannot have any oils or anything like that in there, and then it was all fully sealed in stainless steel, which was a pretty unique application. Another growing market, as we could all probably relate, is the medical market. I actually worked with a company that is automating how quickly they could do blood sample testing. As you can imagine, you're going to your doctor, and typically you do your blood work, and they send it out to a laboratory of some sort that's off-site. These machines that they typically would do the diagnostics of your blood specifically. These are their larger machines. Our customers now have designed more desktop friendly machines that every doctor's office could have in the back room, and they could test the blood samples right on the spot. So utilizing actually our grippers that move the blood samples from one station to the other, we were able to achieve such that in a smaller footprint that now every doctor in the country could essentially have in the back office.
And to follow up on that, with uniqueness and automation, I mean, if you just look at vending machines, the history of vending machines, back when I was a kid, the vending machine was just this linear screw that pushed the product to the front of the glass, waiting for it to drop. Now it's a miniature gantry system that has a gripper on it that reaches over to spot B12 to grab your payday candy bar, grab it, and take it over and deliver it into the chute. So just that small example shows you how automation has changed the world and is influencing us every day.
I know one of the unique applications that I've seen for grippers was actually, typically when you think of a gripper, you're grabbing something. But I've got a customer that they actually took our gripper, and if you're familiar with like a wire stripper, if you're for electricians, what they ended up doing was actually taking the gripper, and they actually made kind of a two-step process on it, to where the gripper would come and actually grab the wire and actually cut it. So it would actually splice the wire. Then it would come and it would back up a little bit, and they would actually then strip the wire to expose the coaxial cable, so they could actually do a process to where they could put the cable ends on it. So it was just kind of a unique little application that's all outside the box.
So, I mean, it sounds like there's so many different applications, so many different ways to use our products in automation. I mean, I would assume that all of those solutions were not off the shelf, or were they mostly off the shelf? I mean,
yeah, well, industry standard, I'm going to go off the enhanced 80-20 rule. And, usually industry standard is you want to do as much standard components as you can for your plant or your systems or any kind of automation. Obviously, depending on the application, there are times when you have to take a standard and convert it into a special. It could be you're dunking into a harsh environment, you're getting it wet, you're submersing it. So typically between 10 and 15% automation could be special based off that application.
So when it gets into that 15, 20% of customs or specials, I mean, what kind of things can Destaco do to help determine what best fits for the customer?
Well, I would say, Darren, that probably the first thing to do is because we don't know. So the first thing we would do is I would say to have the customer to call us and let us utilize the years of experience that we have, to figure out what the answer and the best answer is for you, the customer. Simply put, we're here to help. We've got a team of applications engineers that can help size everything from a small latch clamp to a 100-foot or a greater precision link conveyor. We get the fact that there's so many areas of technology out there that nobody can be an expert in all of these areas, and so no one has the bandwidth to do that. And so that's where we ask you to lean on us, because we are experts in this field, and that's why we're here. Again, our team of applications engineers, they're experts in their field in regards to clamping, work holding, gripping, and indexing solutions. We're here to help determine the right product for your application, either whether that be on a component level or sometimes that can be on a complete package solution that we can deliver to the customer. So once again, we're here to help.
Another aspect that I think Destaco brings a lot of value to the table is that the diversity of our products. As you can imagine, the engineers out there in the world, I always say that they're kids at heart. They're the brains of the world. They take our products and they pretty much play with them like Lego blocks. They take a rotary actuator, they put a thruster at the end, and they put a gripper at the other end. So the things that you could do with our product line and engineers in general, the things they come up with, is just amazing. There's no end in sight. You think we've done it all? Not at all. There's always something that someone will think of, something new, something different, which is very neat, and it's exciting.
Yeah, and what I think is one of our key aspects for Destaco is the sales team being true sales engineers. Like for myself, I was in design, mechanical design, for a number of years before coming to Destaco. That gives me the ability to go onto our customer's floor, understand what they need, and apply a solution along with the rest of the sales team here at Destaco.
Well, guys, we're coming up to the end of our time. I'd like to thank you for all of your insight, your knowledge in automation. I think hopefully it's been very helpful for our viewers to gain some more knowledge and insight, and how Destaco can help provide you the answers and solutions you need. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to add them to the chat. We'll be here around for a little bit longer. You can also navigate over to the product pages and chat with our experts there, and also start up one-on-one chats with our experts through the Contact Destaco Experts tab. Again, if you still have any more questions on top of that, please visit Destaco.com or give us a call. And I'd like to remind you of all the other sessions that are going on over these 2 days regarding automation, indexers, conveyors, grippers. So please join us at one of those events. And for now, I'll say thank you guys for your insight. Thank you for joining us, and goodbye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.